Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to a new episode of the Global Dawah Movement Show, the GDM show. On today's show, we're going to be discussing a video which went viral on YouTube. It's a video in which there's a discussion between Imran and an atheist about evolution, science, induction. Now, what we're going to be doing today is addressing some of the issues which arose from the video and basically what all the hype was about. So give us a bit of a background.
So basically what I want to do is I want to share the argument so it's very clear for people to understand. So brothers and sisters watching this inshallah can benefit from it as well, because it was a bit confusing at the time. You know, there's a lot going on, loads of people coming
talking in the background.
Yeah. And also the guy I was discussing it with, the gentleman, he sort of took the discussion in a direction I wasn't expecting it to go, because we were discussing logic, the laws of logic.
And he's diverting.
And not diverted it, he stayed on it, but he said something I wasn't expecting, which is that, I asked him basically, are the laws of logic universal and unchanging? Are they absolute, right? And are they immaterial? Yeah. He basically said that they're changing, which I would think that even some majority of atheists wouldn't say that the laws of logic are changing.
Because then everything is nonsensical, it's all arbitrary.
I mean, if the laws of logic are changing, and when we say laws of logic, what we mean, or the way I understand it, is they are laws we perceive as human beings in the universe around us. And it's almost the universe is governed by laws, and also these laws which we know as the laws of logic, which are obviously the law of identity, the law of non contradiction, and so on. There's three main laws. But the point is that the laws of logic are unchanging. I mean, if you were to claim they're changing, as this gentleman did, see, this is what happens. Blue Pink Rhino, Pizza Factory, proves God exists. The laws of logic have just changed. Do you see the problem there? The laws of logic can change, then anything's possible, right? You, Pink Elephant, means I have a blue car.
There's no logic.
It's nonsensical, right? But it doesn't happen. I mean, I'll give you another example. We know that, for example, the law of non-contradiction is universal and it applies. It's unchanging. It's ground. For example, say this phone, yeah? Now this phone can't be in my hand and not be in my hand at the same time in the same way.
That would be a contradiction.
Yeah. A cannot be A and not be A at the same time in the same way. It doesn't work, right? And we know this applies throughout the universe. It applies everywhere, right? So this is fixed. It's unchanging, at least from human experience as we understand it. But obviously in the discussion he said it was changing and he went down another route, and you guys can watch the video yourself, because I led him down a very slippery path and he was all over the place, right? But the point is that if they aren't changing, and the second point is that they're immaterial. These laws that we perceive are immaterial. I mean, can you touch the law of non-contradiction, the law itself?
No.
Can you smell the law of identity? You can't. There's no physical properties to these. These are immaterial. So the question I was positing, or I posit, is how can you have laws which are universal and unchanging and immaterial on a naturalistic worldview? It doesn't make sense. How can you have something immaterial on naturalism? It doesn't make sense, right? And how can you have laws which are unchanging and universal on naturalism? Again, it doesn't make sense, because according to naturalism, everything's just here by blind, random physical processes, accidental processes. How do you have these blind, random physical processes get absolute, unchanging, universal, immaterial laws?
And they're symmetric.
Yeah, and laws necessitate what? A lawgiver. It's that simple, right? From our human experience, it makes sense. You can't have universal, unchanging, absolute laws stemming from blind, random physical processes. It doesn't make sense.
What was his main way of getting out of it then?
Well, he just said that they're changing, basically. Now,
okay. But then that would mean that everything that he's saying is just total nonsense, because then there is no such thing as logic. It's just arbitrary. It's just whatever you define it to be, subjective, like morality. Then
you run into huge problems, because if you say the laws of logic are changing, and
I don't think he understood what he was saying.
You can't do anything. You can't have a discussion. You can't do
science.
And this is the point I made. You can't do science anymore. Because what is science? You take see, this is something some atheists and naturalists miss. They're like, well, we have observations. We don't need to trust anything else. We have science. Yes, but what is the scientific method? As Bertrand Russell points out, he says it's an attempt to discover by means of observation and reasoning based upon it particular facts about the world. Note that he says reasoning based upon it. So you take your observations, and through the human agent, the scientist, he employs his reasoning on this data, and then he comes to a conclusion. And your reasoning has to be logical reasoning. You can't just have random, untrustworthy reasoning. So in the absence of logic, you can't do science. You can't do anything, right? So the way I wanted to conclude it, or the point that I'm making, is that these laws exist. They are universal, they're unchanging, and they're immaterial. And the very fact that they are so shows the necessity of the existence of a divine mind, a divine creator, a lawgiver, right? In the absence of which you cannot justify them. If you cannot justify them, you can use them. I mean, some atheists say, well, they just are, they work, right? And we accept it. We can say, fine, you want to make the argument, then let's imply that to God is all. God just is.
Or just apply that to anything.
Yeah,
this just is, or
you're,
that just
you're
is.
A bull. You just are. Which you're not. Which you're not, right? But the point is...
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you're an elephant in disguise.
Just something just is.
Yeah. I mean, you can make any argument. You see, it's not really an argument. It doesn't... It's almost like the anthropic principle where you're not surprised that they work, that they're there.
Because they work.
Yeah, but we're not saying be surprised at the fact that they work. Be surprised at the fact why they work if you claim God does not exist. There's a distinction we need to make. So this was basically the point. And I mean, you see atheists, they ask for proof and evidence, right? And the point I like to make is that, okay, you're asking for proof and evidence, but you understand that proof and evidence assume logic. For you to process that information...
But you know, Imran, one of the issues is a lot of atheists do this, right?
Yeah.
They use terms that they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They hide behind science like it's some sort of shield to protect their stupid worldview. And I'm going to use the word stupid because it is actually very, very stupid to believe it all came by chance.
There's huge holes.
And then on top of that, they'll come out brazenly with arrogance and, yes, but we believe in observation. We don't need logic. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. One depends on the other.
And this is what I'm saying. For the brothers and sisters watching this, the next time someone comes to you and says, give me proof for the existence of God, ask them, hold on a minute, I'll give you proof. But do you understand that you asking for proof assumes logic?
And logic is something which doesn't make sense on your world.
Exactly. So you can't even... The very fact that you ask for proof and you believe you have the faculties to determine what the proof is...
a lawgiver.
Yeah. The very fact that you believe that you have the cognitive faculties to determine and decipher that proof shows that there is a designer or a lawgiver, because you require the laws of logic, which you cannot justify in naturalism. So ask them, well, how do you justify the laws of logic? How can you claim them to be so in the absence of God? They can't. And I know some people will say, well, this is the old so cliche presuppositional arguments and so on and so forth. Fine, but deal with the argument.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah, to sort of end the show, because we're going to be running out of time soon. This happens a lot when you speak to atheists and you, for instance, I remember I was speaking to this atheist in Speaker's Corner, and I gave him an explanation about design, and he goes, oh, that's Thomas Paley's old argument. Yeah. Weak. I was like, he says something like it's a poor argument, it's a weak argument. I said, why is it? But he didn't have an answer. But it's just in their minds, it's like, no, it's just weak, no, it's just this. And what I really, really love, right, over the past couple of years is the atheists are now going on a back foot. Yeah. Before, for the last maybe sort of 10 years, they went a bit crazy. They just went online, made videos, this, and no one really, addressed them. And mainly as Christians, you're trying to address them sometimes badly, right? But now, not only are we addressing their contentions, we're addressing their own worldview and how it itself is just self-contradictory.
We say go to the foundations.
Yeah.
Don't even let them get to step B. Why are we allowing them? And it's fine sometimes if they're sincere, but why are we allowing them to discuss evidences, proofs, rational reasons?
On their own worldview, it doesn't even make sense.
When they can't justify it.
And Allah says a beautiful thing in the Quran, which I actually want to end with. Allah says, when truth hits falsehood, right? The imagery given is that it's almost like it knocks his brain out, right? And when truth arrives, falsehood vanishes, right? So all their confidence that you see on the internet, on videos, on this and this, and when you come and speak to these people one-to-one, they lose that confidence, they lose that certainty, they lose that thing that they had. And maybe this is the reason why people like Richard Dawkins and others refuse to debate with Muslims.
And this is why no point going into semantics and definitions. It's simple. How do you justify these things on naturalism? We don't need to get complicated. It's very simple to understand. And we need to keep it simple, because sometimes people like hiding behind the whole word games and things. Yeah. Keep it simple. Address the point. That's as simple as it is, inshallah.
Okay, so Jazakallah khair for all the information there. There's a lot of information in that show. So if some of it doesn't make sense, please email us on londondawahmovement@gmail.com and we'll get back to you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.